Hey. I'm about to start my first light novel, and I thought maybe it will be an okay thing to record. I don't know. If it don't turn out that great, I'll scrap it. Turns out fine, people don't like it, I'll never do it again. But it's my first reading vlog in general, or reading whatever, and I'm only 19 pages in. I was already kind of confused because there's words in here I've not heard before. The first one is transmigrated. And I thought maybe that it was just like, what's the word I'm looking for? That word, the freaking, where they rewrite the book in our language. Holy cow, words are hard. See, I don't even know if I should be doing this video. Well, apparently some of them are actual words. And the first one is transmigration. And once I looked this up and found it was an actual thing, it made a lot more sense. Basically, transmigration is reincarnation, but with a different word. Why that is, I don't know. Unless it's because he was able to rise from the dead. Because apparently, he freaking reincarnated in this guy that he already knew, apparently. So I'm not sure how this guy specifically died, but he ended up in this other guy, Man, I really can tell stories, can't I? And then, I don't know why I found it so funny, but the first thing he does in this book is have a headache. So I kind of giggled at that because I'm a weirdo and have problems. Anywho, he went to a room and looked in the mirror and found out he wasn't him. And he was this other guy that he knew, and was like, did I transmigrate? And I think he thought about reversing it. I don't know how that works. So I'm not really sure the difference between transmigration and reincarnation, because unless it's transmigration because he just like ended up in a body that was already there. I don't know. Anywho, I'm getting off topic. He found a gun and thinks the guy may have killed himself, but I don't know. But my first thought was, okay, he ended up in a world outside of his world, and now he's with the sister. So does he have a sister in both worlds? But when you find out he's in a different body, it makes a little bit more sense. Anywho. So I was like, maybe I should do a video on this because I'm already having problems. My first light novel is Lord of Mysteries. And I'm not in my typical reading area because I'm usually in bed because I read before I go to sleep to help regulate myself. However, it's still kind of before bed, before I read my book library digital book thingy, and I'm just in another area that I've never read in before, and that's weird to say because I don't have an area for my camera in my bedroom yet. So I'm gonna work on that, and we're gonna see what else weird happens in this book. Also, it's pretty intimidating. Look how big this fucker is for a first novel. I'm a baby, okay? I've never read a light novel before. I didn't even know they existed until recently. And this is how we start off. I almost lost my bookmark. Things are going really bad already. There we go. Okay. So, we're going to see what else happens. I'm not really sure where I left off over here. So, here we go. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Zhu Mingrui. I don't know, but that's the the dead guy that's in the guy now. Yeah. The one that transmigrated. Okay. It's nighttime like usual because I'm a nighttime reader because kid. And I didn't anticipate how long this video would be or how hard this would be making a video on this. Anyway, I just started one line in the new chapter and I'm just like, the fuck, who talks like that? He sat back in his chair and remained there until the bell in the distant church tolled 7 times in a row. Only then did he stand up leisurely and walk to the cabinet. I had to read that a couple times before it sunk in my head. Like, the fuck? Who talks like that? Alright. I read 2 more chapters of this book and they are pretty short. The first one was slightly confusing and was a little worded weird, but the second one it kind of I guess picked up to where language made a little bit more sense. Except there's a part where he was he bought the bread that the guy's sister wanted. I say the guy's because he's in a guy that's not him, you know? And he wanders upon this fortune teller tent and she asks if he wants his fortune taken, and he was pretty hesitant because he doesn't have money for extra stuff besides the second thing he was going to get. And she insists that it's free. She finally pulls a card and the real fortune teller comes in. Thought that was kind of funny. So she was actually an animal trainer, and apparently the way it talks is she has impersonated the fortune teller a couple times. So the real fortune teller is like, so, do you want a real reading from the real fortune teller? And he's like, is it free? She said, no. And he's like, then forget about it. Then after he picks up the other thing that he wants, well, on the way, it had a weird line that says, let's see if I can find it. Oh, this line, which confused me. Because apparently, the animal trainer wants to be a fortune teller. And she's like, a lot of the fortunes I tell are sometimes pretty accurate. Well, then he says, did this mean the animal trainers who didn't want to be fortune tellers were unqualified clowns? And I'm confused because obviously she wants to be a fortune teller. So, that one didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Then, okay, he goes home because, I don't know, he's trying to reverse the transgression and I guess end up in his own body. I'm thinking his own body anyways. He does a ritual and he ends up in the stars. Or somewhere with stars. And he touches a star, it explodes. And then it freaks him out. He backs up and accidentally touches another star. It explodes. Then now there's some lady looking into a mirror, thinking it's a magical mirror. And then she's like, her dad lied. It's not magical. And then something happens with the mirror, and I think she sees it. And then there's another guy that was on a boat. And I'm not sure where these two end up at this time, but clearly they can see each other. And then they see one more person, which was Zoe or Zoo or wherever the fuck his name is, which was the guy who wasn't him. This is so confusing. And then, the other two people are kind of shocked and look at him. So obviously they're not in their, like, normal areas that they're supposed to be, because they're both like, "Sir, where are we? What?" And then says, "What exactly are you doing?" So, I mean, it did get a little more confusing, but also a little bit more interesting in that last chapter. So, it's keeping me wanting to read to see what else happens. But I feel kind of crazy trying to explain the weirdness that's happening in this book. And how some of the sentences aren't quite right. But once I found out what transgression was, it did make a little bit more sense. So yeah. That's that. And I don't think it's quite a book for beginners. I'll say that. But that's the one I end up with. And then after this one, I'll try another one at some point just to see if I like light novels. Because this one is hella crazy. Wow, I read another chapter. I'm so glad that they're like small chapters. Makes it a little easier to read. So in the last clip, I mentioned how they're all in like this fog, and we're now two strangers, and they're both like, "Who are you?" And like, "Where are we?" or whatever. Apparently it's fog, and at this point, I don't know if he's still the guy he was in or like himself, but he's contemplating on what to tell them. And then he's just like, what's the word? Attempt. He says attempt. Seriously, that's what he says. And so the girl's like, "Well, is it over? Can you send us back to where we were?" And then Zoe's just like thinking about how this would be better if it was a more extravagant table with these extravagant chairs where he's at the head of it and he can see who these strangers are. And then the fog miraculously turns into what he envisioned in his brain, and now they're all at a table. And then the two strangers start talking back and forth on some type of trade. And then they're like, "Okay, well, how can we trust each other?" "Well, this guy seems to have some powers. He brought us all here. So it's safe to say that he's our witness, and we wouldn't lie in front of this guy." So then they're both like, "Oh, my apologies. What should we call you?" And if you remember, he just went past a, words are escaping me. Words are hard, bro. A tent with a fortune teller, and she pulled up the fool. Well, he thinks, and he's like, "Y'all can call me the fool." And it's on a cliffhanger till the next chapter. But yeah, that was interesting. So I had plans to do more with my new tablet tonight, but apparently the charger came out like just a sliver, okay? Just a sliver. And you could barely tell. It looked like it was still plugged in, but apparently it wasn't. So it was at 3%, and now it's officially charging, all plugged in and everything. So now we're here. I guess I'm gonna read more of this book, see what happens. And I barely put a dent in it. The size still really intimidates me. Oh my god. And like I said, I think I find this book a lot funnier than it's supposed to be, especially when I make the mistakes of reading it and then figure it out. Or like see something and have to figure that out, and then like some of the wording to it, like what the fuck. But so far seems kind of interesting. I think I have to read a second light novel to see if I like them, just the way this is going. But I do think this is funnier than it should be. But that's just because I never take anything seriously. But let's give it a go. Okay, so the two extra people here are called Audrey and Alger. Audrey and Alger. See, this is where my problem is. So it said Audrey stood up and lifted her skirt slightly. And I was like, damn, that escalated quickly. But here's the breaker. And curtsied. I should really finish the sentence before anything starts scrolling through my mind. Okay, let's try again. Oh, now he's called Mr. Fool. Told you, I find this book just a little bit more humorous than it should be. It's our honor, Mr. Fool. Oh my god. Apparently they have to obtain something called ghost shark blood. Regardless of the world, there is no such thing as a free lunch. So they're talking about tarot cards, and she's like, "So you're the fool, derived from tarot cards." And then they're like, "Yeah, we should each have a name from the tarot cards." And then she was like, "I've decided I shall be Justice." Okay. The other dude picked the Hangman. Okay. I have to find my ring light. But I gotta read this to you. Okay. So somehow the meeting ended, and then the fog place disappeared, and he doesn't know what that was about. He doesn't want to do any more rituals in case something worse happens. And I don't know all that. Anyways, he was bummed that he was still inclined. It's like, oh god, I'm still him. But then he said this right before this chapter ends, and it made me chuckle. So, the gathering was fascinating indeed. People from different places across the world could reduce hundreds of kilometers to mere centimeters in a face-to-face discussion while supplementing each other's needs. Huh? But why does that sound so familiar? Klein was stunned for a few seconds before he burst out laughing. Pressing his hands to his temples, he gestured under his breath. Sounds just like social media. I find that so funny. Oh my god. When you guys annotate a book, do you just like annotate like the quotes you like? But anyway, thought that was funny. Boo. Sorry for the jump scare. I moved to my room because we're having a storm and the wind is like 3 miles per hour and it's sleeting and stuff, and it just sounded like really loud by the window I was by. So I came to my bed. My hands are starting to hurt, but I'm going to finish this chapter. Now it's a little bit on the other two people. And the girl Audrey is like a princess or something. And on top of my hands hurting, my leg is now spasming, so I'm very uncomfortable while trying to read this book. So, when Zoe transmigrated, which apparently, I learned that recently, but also ran into all the books that have transmigration in it. I didn't even know that was a thing. Anyway, when he transmigrated into Klein, he was asleep. So, what happened to his body, if it was still alive? Is those bodies just floating around somewhere out there? Like, so walking on autopilot? I got questions. So I found that out, and he's now looking into why Klein committed suicide. And I know he wants to transmigrate back to his body, which I don't blame him. I'm kind of confused to what his body's doing at this moment. But, this last chapter that I read made my brain hurt, because he's now reading out of a notebook he found. And freaking these it like shows these pages. And the thing is, it's in cursive. And I'm gonna admit that I'm not the greatest at reading cursive. I can barely read it at all. So I struggled hard, almost like I was trying to read another language, which is apparently my language, but in cursive. On top of that, which I find really interesting, is he can speak Mandarin, which is the language I'm learning. And he was talking about Chinese spirituality and stuff. So, I mean, that got me a little intrigued. And I'm also curious of what his body's doing. So, yeah. The last chapter broke my brain a little bit. And I may be done for right now. Trying to get through that was horrible. It was like a 5-year-old trying to read. And then some words, I couldn't even make out what they were. So, luckily he talked a little bit about each note, but I don't know what the note fully said, since there were words I couldn't read. Jesus. I'm in my room, reading again. There was fireworks for, like, the New Year's or whatever, and it was so loud where I was sitting in the office, so I kept startling, which is annoying. I startle at sudden sounds, and I've never got along with fireworks, ever. So, I read a few more chapters on this, and I'm probably going to read more tonight, but not update until maybe tomorrow. But it's getting kind of interesting, because all of a sudden 2 other people died, and it looks like suicide. Which, if you remember, the guy's body that he's in now may have committed suicide. Klein. And for some reason, I can pronounce Klein's name better than I can the guy who's inside Klein. So, because of this couple, because it's 2 people this time that died, and it looks like the female drowned herself, and I can't remember what the other guy did, but the revolver that I mentioned that he found in the office actually came from the guy who's dead. And so now they're looking into Klein. And it got interesting because the police went to them, you know, they questioned him or whatever. And then one of the cops apparently can control dreams. So he somehow got into Klein's dreams, and the police, like, got Klein, was going to take him to the station, and then Klein ran off trying to get away, only to wake up and find out that the guy was controlling his dreams, and he's still fucked, because the cop is trying to take him to see a medium. So that's been a little twisty, topsy-turvy, interesting type of thing. So yeah, I'm kind of getting into this book, so I may like it after all. But we started at a rocky start. It would have helped if I knew what transmigration was. I never even heard of the word until this book. And I thought it was like another word for like resurrection or whatever. And I'm still confused where Zoe's body is, because he was in his sleep when he transmigrated to Klein. And apparently Klein seen the couple on the same day as Klein committed suicide. So they all kind of died at the same time. Just now they're looking into the deaths of the couple. So that's interesting. So yeah, this is a confusing book, but it is kind of interesting. I think I'm going to just read more before I go to bed, and hopefully I remember stuff and don't have to read it again. That way I can update y'all tomorrow. Oh my god, so this camera just quit working. We couldn't figure out why. So I took out its SD card, put it in this thing to put in my computer to get all the footage off, right? And of course the camera still won't work at that point. So then we got my boyfriend's GoPro out, got it charged to where I could finish this vlog with it. Then the next day, this camera came back on and would charge again while his quit working. Make it make sense. So I don't know what happened with that. This is my first ever reading vlog, so I guess there were bound to have some quirks, but what the fuck? Anyway, I like this book so much that I got number 2. Hopefully there's not a number 3. And I keep thinking the first one is bigger, but like, I'm not sure. And I'm like that far into it. I did read it a little bit even after the camera quit working. We'll get to that in a second. And then this is this one, and it starts kind of weird. Like, I haven't read it yet, but like the chapters, I was very confused because this starts at chapter 77, right? And I was like, what the fuck? But then I noticed that this book stopped at 76, so it was going on from there. So it's almost like they made one whole book and just cut into 2 halves. I don't know. But this one still seems bigger. By at least, I don't know, a couple inches. But like if you didn't have them together, for some reason, this one looks extremely bigger and more intimidating. But when you put them together, there's like only a little bit. Okay. So that's the whole book thing, alright? And the camera thing. Oh my god. And now my kid is sick. And we've been fighting a fever all day. Anyway, back to the book. So, if I remember right, in the last clip, before all the chaos, I talked about him going and seeing a medium. Well, he ended up passing that. And then the creepy cop dream guy turned around and was like, hey, yeah, supernatural experience. You want to come work for us? And I want to take a short moment here and say I don't exactly know what counts as a spoiler. So if there is any spoilers, I'm sorry, but I'm trying my hardest not to give a whole bunch away, because apparently that irritates people. But the next day he did give him his decision, and then he had his next meeting with the girl and the guy, and apparently the other guy was also a beyonder. Oh yeah, which brings me to this. He ended up, like, upgrading ain't the right word. He, like, went up next level and became, like, a promotion, and became a beyonder of some sorts. And it feels like the old guy that, like, takes him through it is having the time of his life with this and finds it so fucking amusing. And I'm not even sure if this is supposed to be funny or not, or I just have like a weird sense of humor. And in the first few pages, the writing is really weird, but it doesn't seem to get that weird too often, so I was able to keep up with it. And then every once in a while it has weird writing again. So I don't know if it's the way it's translated, but it makes a lot more sense when you know he's a transmigrator. Or what transmigration means. Which I didn't even know that was like a genre through manga. But yeah, whatever. So we're gonna like read some more of it real quick. And pray that my kid don't wake up, or that the camera breaks, or, you know, any abnormalities anywhere of any kind, of any sort, because it just seems to be my life. My life is chaos, and I can't take it. Okay. Anyways, we're halfway through the book. And I'm finally getting some bookmarks. Like, this came with one of the Chinese books I got. Also, if y'all like this type of video, I could probably try to do another one, or another reading vlog, because I'm really getting into books, but this is my first light novel, which is why I made a video on it. And this chapter is called A Simple Problem. Yeah, I think I have a weird sense of humor. Alright. Oh, also, what's also interesting about this is when I looked more into the book, it actually was Chinese. It wasn't from Japan. It was from China, and it was translated into English, which is why he knows Mandarin. And where he's transmigrated to is like in another world, which I still don't understand that part. But he talks about him coming from Earth and trying to get back there, and I'm wondering if he lives in China then. So, I mean, that was pretty cool since I'm getting into everything Chinese, so that was just interesting. Now it's the dog. I also forgot to mention that he mentions in this world that he's in, they don't know any Mandarin. And there is something by some type of like diary from somebody who I believe is dead now, and he knows of this person, and they don't know that he knows Mandarin, so he was able to read it and decipher it without them knowing, which I found very interesting. So like they still think that it hasn't been deciphered and no one could read it. Hey again. I don't know what to say. My kid got the flu. Finally keeping his fever down. Wow. Brain fog. And I think he has been so kind to, pass it down to Mama. Least you could do is not share it. I don't want this precious gift. So my throat is starting to bug me. I feel kind of crappy, so I would take this time to read some more of this. Also, I did find out there is a third one coming out in May. So if I like the second one as much as I like the first one, I'll get the third one. Also, I found the name of this in Chinese, which I'm not even going to try to do at the moment because my pronunciation apparently still kind of sucks. But it led me to this website called Shidan, I think, and it had an app, and I'm going to download the app, and apparently you can sign in with your WeChat, and I have WeChat. I'm not really sure how that works, though. So I'm going to mess with that later. I also found the anime in English. Someone was kind enough to get it all and put it in one lump sum and post it to YouTube. It's like 7 hours long. Granted, I only did watch maybe a little less than 10 minutes of it, and already don't know how I feel about it. Some things made a little sense since I've already read it in the book. And the very, very beginning, I was not ready for. But their voices are slightly weird. Because of the way their voices are, I couldn't quite hear with all the background that was happening. It's like their voices were really low. And, like, everything in the background of the people was, like, really high. But in my defense, I don't have that great of hearing as it is. So it's going to be something I'm going to have to watch when nothing else is going on. And usually if I'm watching something, there's a lot happening in the background that I'm usually able to black out. Because, you know, kid. So sometimes when he's watching something, I'll watch something. But I couldn't block anything in the background out, and their voices were just like really, really low. So I am going to have to retry that when I'm not with the child. And I may just like the books more than the anime. But like I said, I already had some problems with it, with the hearing and the voices and the way it looks. So I'm going to try it again and see how it goes. So yeah, I don't know what else to say on that. And then I may try to find it in Chinese because I know more about the story now. And to be fair, I never thought this would be one that I'd actually get into. But I really like the books. Or at least the first one. I do got the second one now. And we'll see there. And then if I like second one, I'll buy the third one. And then I may just be really immersed in it. However, I don't know, I struggled a little with the animes. But I had too much going on. And I don't feel good. And their voices were extremely low. So I'm going to give it another shot. And I'm just going to read this. We're still only that far in. Also, in the beginning of the anime, it doesn't... Like, this is more in-depth of what's happening. In the beginning, he was like, oh, fuck. I'm in another body. that ain't me. There's a gun. And then that was it. And then the first interaction with Klein's sister, I did not hear at all. Because the way their voices are. So, moving on. Apparently I have a new obsession. Because I literally went down a rabbit hole on trying to find this in Chinese. Apparently it was some type of web novel. So once I get in with my WeChat, I'll go from there. I don't know if I'll make my reactions on the second book unless y'all want to know what I think on it. So let's just try to finish this one. I did it. I finished it. And I really liked it. I did end up getting into the anime when I could focus. And now I am starting to watch it in Chinese. So yeah. And now I'll be starting the second book. Apparently it's a Lord of Mysteries week for me. Because that's all I did too when I didn't feel good. And I did get a fever later on, and then now I'm fine, so I don't know. And the kid was sent home from school again because of a fever. And now the fever's gone. And he's bouncing off the walls again, so hopefully when he goes back to school Monday, he will stay there. But I don't know, because none of it's making any sense. So yeah. So I'm going to end the video here. And I'm glad I ended up liking it. And then I have this novel. And then I have one other light novel I need to get through, which is my first Baihe. Something like that. Girl love book that's from China. Oh my god. Yeah, I like light novels. Because now I want to get some for a couple mangas that I already knew I liked. So, anyways, see you in the next one. Bye, guys.